I don't usually talk about this because when you work maintaining trails in the Catskill Mountains, you quickly learn that whatever you can't explain somehow becomes your problem. That afternoon, I was marking a new stretch near a shallow creek, about 2 hours from the nearest parking lot. It wasn't a tourist area. Hardly anyone went that deep, and that was exactly what I liked about the job. The first sign was the smell. It wasn't the usual damp forest scent or the rot of a dead animal. It was heavier, like wet clothes left sitting for days mixed with warm earth. I thought of a black bear. There are plenty out there. But I didn't find claw marks on trees or torn up ground or scraps of food. Then I saw the tracks, clear in the fresh mud by the water. They weren't rounded like a bear's. They were elongated, with a defined heel and 5 distinct toes, over a foot long. The impressions weren't evenly pressed either. The weight seemed concentrated toward the front, as if whatever made them leaned slightly forward while walking. I wasn't scared at first. I figured it was a prank, some hiker with fake feet. But the prints continued for nearly 100 meters, always in a straight line. No side tracks, no boot marks nearby, no sign of a walking stick. And the stride was long, longer than someone my height could manage comfortably. I saw it when I finally looked up from the ground. It stood among the trees, maybe 30 or 40 meters away, not fully exposed. The trunk of a birch covered part of its torso, but the head and one shoulder were visible. It was tall, easily over 2 meters, broad, not fat, but solid, like something used to carrying weight. The hair was dark, deep brown with lighter patches across the chest. It wasn't uniform. Parts looked matted and dirty. The face wasn't like a gorilla's. The features were flatter, a low forehead, a wide straight nose. The eyes were set deep and seemed to track every movement I made. It didn't bare its teeth or act aggressive. It simply didn't move. I felt that tight pressure in my chest that tells you something isn't right. I forced myself to stay calm. I didn't run. I stepped back, slowly, keeping it in sight. That's when it tilted its head slightly to one side, almost as if assessing me. That small gesture unsettled me more than anything. It didn't feel like an animal reacting on instinct. It felt deliberate. When I took my third step back, it turned its torso with surprising fluidity for something that size and moved into the trees without the crashing noise you'd expect. A few branches cracked. That was it. Later, I approached the spot where it had stood. There was a mark in the birch bark at the height of my face, as if a hand had rested there. The impression was wide, with long, thick fingers. I filed the report. I labeled it Possible Unidentified Wildlife Sighting. My supervisor read it in silence and said it was probably a bear standing on 2 legs. I didn't argue. It wasn't worth it. I've avoided that area ever since, not because I think it would attack me. What unsettled me was the feeling that it allowed me to see me, as if I had stepped into its territory and it simply decided whether I was a threat. I never found tracks like that again, but whenever the forest goes too quiet, I remember that afternoon in the Catskills and the way those eyes studied me before disappearing.
It wasn't a calm sighting, or something I could file away as possible misidentification. What happened that night was recorded as an accident caused by a fall on uneven terrain, but that's just the official version. I was camping with a colleague from the Forest Survey team in an elevated area of the Catskill Mountains. We had finished installing markers and decided to stay because hiking back in the dark was worse. It wasn't a formal campsite, just a flat clearing overlooking the valley, surrounded by dense trees. Near midnight, I heard footsteps, not random cracks or falling branches, heavy, rhythmic steps circling the camp. My colleague heard them too. He lifted his head from inside the tent and whispered it was probably a bear. Then something hit the side of the tent. It wasn't a swipe, it was a blunt shove, like someone had kicked it hard. The frame bent inward and nearly collapsed on us. I grabbed the flashlight and stepped outside. I saw it less than 15 meters away, partially lit by the low fire. It wasn't as massive as exaggerated stories suggest, but big enough that my brain lagged trying to process it. Tall, over 2 meters, Broad shoulders, long arms hanging almost to the knees. The hair was dark, with longer strands along the forearms. Under the light, patches of grayish skin showed on the face. It made a low sound, not a roar, more like a deep vibration from its chest. It took 2 quick steps toward me. It didn't move clumsily. It had balance, leaning slightly forward. That's when I understood it wasn't investigating, it was pushing us out. I grabbed a burning branch from the fire and raised it. My colleague came out the other side shouting. The creature snapped its head toward him with a speed that froze my blood, and it charged. It was a direct rush. My colleague tried to back away, tripped over a root, and fell downhill. I ran after him, more from instinct than courage. I could hear the heavy breathing behind us, very close. The ground was uneven, slick with wet leaves. We went down a steep slope and nearly rolled. At one point, I looked back and saw it less than 5 meters away. Its strides were long, arms swinging with force. The eyes caught the beam of my flashlight, not like a deer's reflection, but with a duller, heavier shine. My colleague managed to get up and crossed a narrow creek. I did the same, slipping and soaking my legs to the knees. The creature stopped at the bank. It didn't hesitate out of fear of water. It seemed to calculate. It stomped the ground once, kicking up mud, and released another deep chest vibration. I thought it would cross and finish what it started, but it didn't. It stepped back once, then again, never taking its eyes off us. It stood still for several long, tense seconds, as if making sure we understood the message. Then it turned and climbed the slope with an agility that didn't match its size. In less than half a minute, it was gone. We returned to the campsite at dawn. The tent was torn along one side, not by fine claw marks, but by a force that ripped the fabric in a single pull. Clear, deep footprints surrounded the fire pit. The official report mentions an aggressive bear attracted by food. No food remains were found outside the sealed containers, but that detail didn't make it into the paperwork. We left the Catskills that same day. My colleague requested a transfer. I stayed on the job, but I never camped on that elevated clearing again. I don't think it wanted to kill us. I think it wanted us gone.
I decided to spend a week isolated in the Catskill Mountains with my old motorhome, a '92 Winnebago that can still handle gravel roads if you don't push it too hard. I parked in a wide clearing, far from the main routes, with a dense tree line in the distance. I just wanted silence. The first night was normal. The second started strange. Around 2 in the morning, the vehicle swayed slightly. I thought it was wind, even though I couldn't hear leaves moving. Then it shifted again, stronger this time, like someone had leaned their weight against one side. I stayed still in bed. The metal frame creaked. I heard slow footsteps circling the motorhome. They weren't light steps. Each one made the ground beneath the wheels subtly tremble. I peeked through the small side window, barely moving the curtain. At first, I saw nothing but darkness and faint moonlight. Then a silhouette crossed in front of the windshield. It was tall, clearly taller than the cab roof. It moved upright, shoulders slightly hunched forward. The hair looked dark but not fully black. Under the bluish nightlight, it showed brown tones. It didn't move like a bear standing on 2 legs. The balance was different, steadier. It stopped in front of the vehicle. From my angle, I could see part of its torso and head. The face was partially lit by the moon. There was no pronounced snout. The features were flatter, with a strong jaw and a wide nose. The hair on its head looked shorter than on the rest of its body. It struck the side with an open palm. Not a swipe, a blunt, solid hit. The body of the motorhome vibrated and a glass fell inside. Then it pressed something against the wall, maybe its shoulder. I felt the suspension tilt slightly under the weight. I started the engine without turning on the lights.
The sound shattered the forest silence. The creature stepped back once but didn't run. It walked toward the front and stood directly in front of the windshield. That's when I saw it fully. Over 2 meters tall, long arms, large hands with thick fingers. It didn't look starved or exaggeratedly muscular. It was solid, built for the environment. Its eyes briefly reflected the dashboard light, not with a sharp animal glare, but with a duller glint. It stared straight at me. There was no overt aggression, but no innocent curiosity either. It felt like a clear warning. This space wasn't mine. I pressed the accelerator. The motorhome lurched forward over the uneven dirt. The figure moved aside in 2 quick steps, surprisingly agile for its size. It didn't stumble or lose balance. I drove without headlights until I reached the main road. Only then did I breathe normally. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. At dawn, I went back, stubborn enough to want proof. Where I had parked, there were deep impressions in the damp soil, large footprints clearly pressed into the ground. One stood near the side door, well-defined, with arch and toes visible. I also noticed something else, a long mark along the paint on the side, not a thin scratch, but a dragged pressure line, as if a hand had moved across it with controlled force. I didn't call anyone. I didn't file a report. What would I say? That something told me to leave without speaking a word? I sold the motorhome months later. I realized something simple. There are places in the Catskills not meant for someone to spend the night surrounded by metal and light. Whatever it was didn't try to flip the vehicle or smash the windows. It could have if it had wanted to. It only needed to push it hard enough for me to understand.